with the team. So, Ryan, you've been a player in the Steelers locker room. What are you thinking at this point about your quarterback situation after the draft?
That they better have either the steel curtain or the 2008 Steelers defense if they want to be a team that could be near 500. Listen, they put themselves in an extremely difficult situation, whether it was waiting on Aaron Rodgers or not addressing it in free agency or not picking someone in the draft before they picked Will Howard that could be a viable starter for this year. When you look at the plan that Omar Khan has put in place, I don't believe this allows you to compete with the Baltimore Ravens or the Cincinnati Bengals, even the Cleveland Browns improving, and we know how good that AFC is. This could be the first losing season of Mike Tomlin's tenure as Pittsburgh's head coach.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, here we go again. As a defensive player, I'm starting to get ready to lift these weights and run these hills, and I'm like, here we go again. Like, how are we going to score more than 17 points? Like, so why am I out here busting my behind, running, trying to get bigger, faster, stronger, and y'all going to get a 42-year-old off the beach with a blanket around his shoulders to play quarterback for us? Like, at some point, y'all got to help me help you. And so I'm just saying to myself, like, here we go again. Are we going to do this one more time?
But you're right on it, bro. Which is why for the black community that think I hate Shedeur Sanders is why I thought he should have went 21, which I talked about ad nauseum.
You did.
Because I did think he was the second best quarterback in this draft. But also, if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers and you have a higher grade on another quarterback, why you ain't take them at 21? Why we gotta wait? Like, you knew Mason Rudolph wasn't the answer. Everybody in the world know that. Right? We look at the rest of the quarter. Hopefully, they hoping Will Howard turn into a Tom Brady situation and he surprise them is all I can assume. But this waffling at this quarterback position that's been going on for so long in Pittsburgh is starting to grow real weary on these fans. And me and RC talked about it during the draft. What are they going to do to not only instill some hope at that position, but more importantly, reinvigorate the dudes in that locker room? You go get receivers in DK Metcalf, and you don't have anybody to get them the ball consistently. If it ain't Aaron Rodgers, which y'all know I said I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, I think they should have took one of these quarterbacks, which I thought would be Shedeur at 21.
Yeah, look, the profile of the guy that they have ultimately is going to be important, Marcus, because of the thing that you just alluded to. Look, DK Metcalf and George Pickens, do they come across as the kind of guys that are going to take real kindly to a quarterback who can't get them the rock on a consistent basis? I think that's going to bode well for their football team. I'm just asking. You know what I mean?
They're going to beat him up. They're going to beat him up.
They need to make sure. They just need to make sure that dude is that dude. And look, Mason Rudolph has played a role in this league for a long time, and he'll continue to play that role. But it's a role. They need a franchise quarterback. And now they've painted themselves into a corner, and it's either Aaron Rodgers to me or bust, or otherwise, exactly as RC said, you're looking at a real troubling season, I believe.
On Shedeur was the Steelers. Here's a look at their draft. They had just 2 picks in the top 120. They took Oregon defensive tackle Derek Harmon in the first round, and then running back Caleb Johnson in the third round. 4 of their final 5 picks were on the defensive side of the ball. The lone exception, quarterback Will Howard in the 6th round. He joins Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson in the QB room. Adam, the Steelers said they would be adding 2 quarterbacks. We saw them from the draft. They drafted Will Howard. What are their plans from here?
Well, there's one, and I think they're hoping and thinking and believing that the last one will be Aaron Rodgers. Art Rooney, the owner of the team, said over the weekend that he still was optimistic that Aaron Rodgers was going to wind up in Pittsburgh, hopefully sooner rather than later. But there is patience within the organization. Mike Tomlin, the Steelers head coach, has not been in any rush to get a decision from Aaron Rodgers, but really the Steelers are the last team that remains that needs a quarterback here for the upcoming season, and Aaron Rodgers clearly would like to continue playing, though he said on the Pat McAfee show he hadn't made that decision just yet. But it's a situation where I think the Steelers believe ultimately he'll come around, he'll wind up opting to play, and he'll wind up opting to play in Pittsburgh. The other team that seemingly interested Aaron Rodgers, the Minnesota Vikings, traded for Sam Howell over the weekend. They would seem to have satisfied their need for another quarterback with Sam Howell and that acquisition. And now that leaves the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers waiting to join forces. It still could be a little while before he signs him, but I think the belief within the organization is that he still will come around and wind up this season in Pittsburgh.
All right, so we keep waiting for that. Adam. Mina, what do you think of how the Steelers approached the draft, only taking Will Howard in the 6th round?
I would have taken a quarterback earlier, just to be blunt. I don't begrudge them skipping on quarterback in the 1st round. I actually love the Derek Harmon pick, player I really liked at a position of need for them. But after that, they had a couple of opportunities, I think, to take a swing on one. Jalen Milroe in the 3rd round. They took a running back, Caleb Johnson. And then in the 4th, instead of taking Sanders, they took Jack Sawyer, who gives them edge depth. But the way I see it, Laura, if you're a team without a long-term answer at quarterback, and I think we can agree even if the Steelers add Aaron Rodgers, they still don't have a long-term answer, you got to take some swings. People say, well, they can go for it next year. Well, frankly, we're talking about a team that never picks in the top 10 because they don't lose that many games, and they're also in a division that just loaded up on draft picks for next year. So I don't see that as a plan. I don't see Aaron Rodgers as a long-term plan. And I just wish they had been a little bit more aggressive at the position. I thought the Steelers' intentions or their feelings about Shedeur Sanders became crystal clear for me at pick 83 in the 3rd round. When they didn't take him at 21, you're saying to yourself, I get you, Derek Harmon's an excellent, excellent player who led all FBS defensive tackles and pressures last season. That is one where it's a premium need for them in a premium position, even if not at the level of quarterback. Once they bypassed Shedeur Sanders at 83, the message to me was very obvious. We're not interested in this player. We just don't view him as a draftable quarterback at this point, which probably means their grade for him is below that of a starter level. So I was actually okay at that point with them waiting until the 6th round because I didn't think the gap between Will Howard and a lot of the quarterbacks that went ahead of him was really a gap at all. As a matter of fact, I had Wills with a 3rd round grade in this draft, so I thought it was a good investment for Pittsburgh. I just am most nervous about this is that, yeah, there's a lot of optimism repeatedly from the Pittsburgh Steelers franchise. What's the wait, though? I mean, this has been multiple months of Aaron Rodgers seemingly having one suitor left over and no deal has been put to paper. Again, it's not like there's mini camps or training camp that he's missed out on, J-Mag, but still I'm sitting here thinking to myself, if it can't get done, we're not in the era where he needs to go, you just sign a signature on whatever, an iPad, and we're good to go, I thought. Well, and Adam just said, I mean, it could take a lot longer. I know how I would feel if I were in that locker room, but if you're a player in the Steelers locker room right now and this is your quarterback situation, how are you feeling?
I mean, you're sitting around waiting for that first team meeting, and you're kind of looking at each other, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and it feels like deja vu where you're continuing to go in. And this year, very different than last year, where there was some hope behind Justin Fields and Russell Wilson that they were going to be able to come help you or possibly save you. Didn't work out. Now you're going into this season, and even going into draft weekend, I think for the players in that locker room, you didn't think you were going to walk away with a quarterback that was going to come in as a rookie and lead this team in that division to continue to win a ton of games. So you're feeling very uneasy, and you're kind of hoping that Rodgers does decide to sign and come play for your football team because you don't like the prospects, even of a guy like Will Howard, who was a champion in college. You don't expect him to come in and win games right away, so it'd be nice to have a veteran in Rodgers.
Quickly, what about Kirk Cousins? Should they be trying to make, if the Falcons would make him available?
I mean, that's very interesting. An older quarterback, but a guy that you take away this past season where he was injured coming off a down year, he has been very accomplished in this league, and he'd be a veteran in that locker room. So, I mean, if you're a player that's not your money, absolutely. Throw some draft picks at him, throw some money, and bring him on to Pittsburgh.
That'd be interesting if the players could control who they got. All right, we've got some news today, of course. George Kittle gets a big